That's the first pillar of apartheid. The state then segregates populations into geographical areas based on their identity. The favored identity receives preferential access to land, to water, to other resources, and to government benefits, while a non-preferred group is confined to ever-shrinking, non-contiguous territorial enclaves. And thirdly, this is the centerpiece of an apartheid regime. The state establishes security laws which define any opposition to the regime as a security threat. And therefore, anyone who shows any opposition to the regime is labeled a terrorist. That gives them permission then to dominate through assassinations, through administrative detention. The young student that I met that had spent 3 years in prison was administratively detained for 3 years. And he had been a political leader in his high school years, trying to be against the situation there. So that's the system that holds this in place. And now I want to go back to this map and talk about the laws in Israel proper. I'm not talking about the occupied territories, in Israel proper. Israel proper, the civil law in Israel proper, codifies the Jewish identity as the preferred identity and establishes that collective rights extend to Jews only. All other people in Israel proper, not the territories, Israel proper, lack the right to a national life anywhere in Eretz Israel, anywhere in historic Israel. And it's important that historic Israel goes well beyond the borders of Israel itself. So historic Israel includes areas of Syria, areas of Lebanon, Jordan, all the occupied territories, and beyond. And just knowing that law gives you a sense of why these people in the Middle East might feel threatened. Because Israel, if you have a state, it's a borderless state, they have never declared borders, and they have a law in their state that says their people are the only ones entitled to live not just in their land, not just in their state, but areas beyond their state. Israel's state resources, and again, this is in Israel proper, are specified as being for the exclusive use and benefit of Jews. They're administered under the World Zionist Organization, the Jewish Agency, and the Jewish National Fund. I'm sure some of you have heard of these organizations. These are worldwide organizations. They are authorized agents of the State of Israel. They receive funding from the State of Israel. They are empowered to manage Israel's state affairs, but their charters and Israeli law mandate that they operate in perpetuity for the exclusive benefit of world Jewry. So that's in Israel proper. So now I want to go back to the West Bank, and what has happened is once Israel in 1967 occupied the West Bank, and I'm just talking about the West Bank, it did apply to Gaza, things have changed in Gaza, and it's really now just a prison. But the West Bank is occupied territory, and the first week after Israel won the 1967 war, they immediately channeled their civil law into the West Bank. They channeled their own civil law into the West Bank to apply to Jews. They channeled a second set of laws to apply to Palestinians. A second set of laws are military orders. So people in the occupied territories, if you're Jewish, you have one set of law. If you're Palestinian, it's a completely different set of laws. And they are very, very different. So for instance, a Jewish boy who might throw a stone most likely nothing would happen, but if anything happened, if he threw a stone at a Palestinian, maybe he would get some little job to do, but most likely nothing. But a Palestinian throwing a stone at a Jew or even at the wall can be, at age 12, is prosecuted as an adult and could end up with anywhere from 6 to 20 years in prison. So there's a huge difference between the laws that govern Palestinians and govern Jews. So I want to talk now just about the situation on the ground, but I think you can't understand that situation and how Israel got such a tight grip on Palestine unless you understand that those laws that are in place that help them get this situation going. The West Bank, as Ellison already pointed out, is about 22% of historic Palestine. And since Israel has been an occupier, they have gradually grabbed those resources. So for instance, again in 1967, one of the first laws they passed was the law that all Palestinian surface water and groundwater was the property of the state of Israel, no longer belonged to Palestinians. All Palestinians lost their water rights. Israel has established settlements, and Ellison already talked about it, and settlements take up about 3% of the 11% that now remains. So I want to show you, just give you an idea. A lot of people wonder what a settlement looks like. This is a settlement with Naom. And Naom is not a big settlement. It's maybe 1,000 people. I just kind of caught a picture of the edge of it. You could see there's a water tank, looks like radio stations, electricity. They would have a community center. They might have a pool. It's a very nice settlement. This settlement interested me because I was visiting the Christian Peacemaker team next door in a Palestinian village, and they were telling us that this is mostly weekend settlers. They live in Israel proper during the week. They go in the weekend to the settlement and enjoy the time there and then back into Israel proper for the week again. So these are weekend settlers. And they're right next to a very old Palestinian village, the village of Utahns. Utahns is a subsistence farmers. They grow winter wheat. They have goats. They make yogurt. They raise cheese. They have some olives, grapes. You can see in this picture there's even some power lines. It was shortly after this picture was taken, Israel came out and took out those power lines. So when I visited, there was no power. And the people in that village were saving their money to try to buy a solar panel so that they could have power intermittently. They found it amazing to think that there would be settlers who had weekend homes and yet are coveting this land. This little village of Utahns is completely surrounded by settlements, about 6 settlements around it. And each one of the settlements is encroaching gradually towards Utahns. That's why the Christian Peacemaker team is there. This is a young Palestinian girl who lives in Utahns. This is their source of water. The settlers have poisoned their water a number of times. They poison them by throwing dead chickens or dead dogs in the wells. But this is another settlement. And this is obviously much larger. What was interesting to me about these settlements is that natural growth in Israel is about 1.6%, which means the population doubles in 44 years. And yet we hear in our media a lot of talk. Netanyahu and various Israeli leaders will say, well, we have to be allowed natural growth. How could we not be allowed natural growth in our settlements? Well, these settlements tripled in population and expanded 6 times in land area from 1987 to 2005. So there's no relationship between the way settlements are expanding and actual natural growth. So you wonder what